I'd like to, at this stage, just invite the speakers to the stage, if you could. That would be great if you could join us. For everybody else, welcome to the Dubai Global Events Reopening Forum. It's brilliant to be joined today by so many friends and peers from the hotel, hospitality, and MICE industry. And welcome to this fabulous backdrop, this fabulous venue with the Museum of the Future in the background. It looks amazing. And to everybody joining us from online around the world, welcome to Dubai. Thousands of you from 50 different countries. Now, what a difference a year makes. If you cast your mind back 12 months ago, as the rest of the world was just beginning to wake up to how serious coronavirus was, the UAE was already taking strong action. On March 22nd, the schools shut. On March 25th, the flight stopped, the borders closed, the malls were shuttered. And then on March 26th, the national sterilization program began and lockdown started. But by May 2020, the hotels were beginning to reopen, the restaurants were beginning to open, the beaches were all coming back to life, and slowly and safely, the recovery began. Fast forward to today, and Dubai is leading the world once again, reopening large-scale events to international travelers. It is the first city in the world to host 2 major global events, with Gitex in December and Gulfood just in February. And let's also not forget IDEX over in Abu Dhabi, attracting international travelers from around the world. How has the UAE done this? Well, I'm delighted today to be joined by 6 guests who have many of the answers. His Excellency Halal Al-Mari, Director General of Dubai Tourism and the Dubai World Trade Center. Paul Griffiths is CEO of Dubai Airports. Mohammed Al Hashmi is Vice President, Commercial Products at Emirates Airlines. We also have Mark Willis, who is the CEO, Middle East and Africa with Accor, and Matt Denton, who is President of MIA for DMG Events, and of course, Trixie Lowen-Merman, who is Executive Vice President, the Dubai World Trade Center, and a UFI board member. Welcome to you all. And if I could just briefly ask you just to mask up again, my guests, we'll have a quick picture and then it's into the questions. Yeah. Just to the front. So, to the interesting part, what you've all been waiting for. And Halal, I'm going to start with you, if I may. I am frequently posting, as all my friends in the UK will tell you on LinkedIn, about how lucky we are in Dubai. I've been vaccinated, everything's open. But from your perspective, how big an achievement is it that we're here today, that live events are back and back in such a big way? How on earth has the UAE achieved this?
Look, first of all, I want to welcome all of you here, and I definitely want to welcome all the people following also online. A great thanks go out to all the frontline workers who have kept us safe over this period. And thanks also to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for his support and the decision-making, the decisive decision-making that has kept us ahead of this pandemic that we all face. Another thing we have to keep in mind, and it really goes to the heart of your question, is the 200 nationalities living and working here. I think the way they have taken the responsibility of behavior of this pandemic upon their shoulders has really allowed us to navigate through exactly the way we have and really managed to adjust as needed throughout these last 12 months. Dubai, as you mentioned earlier, was one of the first to shut, so decisive action was taken. The period of time between shutting and reopening, although one of the shortest in the world, a lot happened. And, you know, I think it goes way beyond luck when you see the nodding of my colleagues here. The team from the Crisis Management Committee really did go through each and every sector in detail, looking at what precautionary measures would it take to open back up? This was based on data. And again, the emerging data, as you will remember 12 months ago, was a little bit harder to come by than today. So this was an iterative process which allowed us to open each and every sector gradually, not immediately in full. So even the tourism sector was opened domestically in May and not till July for international visitors, because everything had to be tried and tested. The event sector also was absolutely no different. In July, we held the first major event, which was AI Everything, and it was a domestic event at that time. All the precautionary measures which were put in place, we were able to test them and we were able to build on them. When you fast forward throughout the year, we had a number of MICE events, whether they be corporate meetings, conferences, and the two most notable were in December, Gitex, and in February, Gulfood. Those events took place, and whilst they were not quite as big as they were the year before, they were still extremely successful, and they were what's considered mega events by any standard. Beyond the first thing which was very noticeable in these events was the desire to do business was there from people around the world. We had a great deal of international visitors coming to these events, and when we surveyed them, and my team even gave me a little paper here with the survey results in case I forget, but when we surveyed all the international visitors, we noticed a few things. First of all, they were impressed with the precautionary measures, not only at the event itself, but across Dubai. Because I remember they came from over 160 countries. These people came from all over the world. Many of them had to potentially take more than one flight to get here. We had over 92% that saw Dubai as the safest place in the world to conduct business meetings. We had 98 to 99% who said they felt safe or very safe. And again, the number, which was around 95% and over, was related to feeling safe at every touch point throughout the city, from the airline to the airport, all the way through to the hotels and everywhere else. I think that was a testament. And again, the consistency was there throughout. When we look forward to the rest of this year, because 2021 being our golden jubilee for the UAE is a very big year, we do expect the events industry to pick up. We do expect the business meetings and the desire of people and the need of businesses around the world to connect with the rest of the world to continue. We have Expo coming towards the end of the year. With vaccination programs around the world taking pace, we do see that we're very well positioned to welcome the world in Dubai, and I look forward to what this year has to offer.
Thank you, Mohammed. From Emirates Airlines perspective, I guess March 25th, when the flight stopped, must be a day ingrained in your memory. But looking back on it, and when you were looking around the world, did you know in your heart that it was the right thing to do? And then talk us through how you came back to restarting the flights and more importantly, restoring passenger confidence.
No, absolutely. I think as Emirates, we fully support the measures that were taken place by the UAE authorities to safeguard the people. I mean, safety has always been our top priority. In fact, we were one of the first airlines to implement biosafety procedures on all layers of travel, be it on the ground or in the air. Our disinfectation program that was held on board is something that was put in place before COVID-19 was even declared as a pandemic. We've looked at different elements in order to restore customer confidence. I mean, even from our products and services, what we have done is we fast-tracked some of the projects that we had there to make travel more efficient and safe and contactless, like the biometrics, as well as the baggage drop-offs and the check-in kiosks that we have at the airports. Now, we've also kept the traveler's confidence, we've kept the traveler's confidence naturally by offering very generous rebooking options for our customers and sticking to our promise of refunds. We processed over 1.7 million refunds last year during the pandemic. And we are also looking at how we constantly and continually enhance our products and services as and when we get more information about the virus. Now, as they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I would say that the coordination and collaboration that has been taking place within the Dubai ecosystem with all my colleagues sitting around here and the others is what has led us to this success and has put us in the right foot to ensure that tourism does come back to Dubai.
Paul Mohammed there talking about collaboration. I mean, I think the word unprecedented has been used an unprecedented amount of times in the last year. But when you talk about the government and the private sector partnership, it truly is unprecedented. How important was it for you to get it right at Dubai airports, both in terms of health and safety and in terms of restoring confidence in travel?
Well, I think the thing is Dubai airports clearly is 96% of everyone's first and last experience. And of course, we were facing, I think, 3 challenges, and the evidence on each of those challenges was very strong. I mean, agreeing with Hilal's opening remarks, the leadership shown by the Dubai government in managing the pandemic was outstanding. And I think a lot of countries who dithered and delayed their decision-making paid the price. We actually maintained a very strong position against the pandemic right from day one. Secondly, confidence, because although this is a time where medical security is incredibly important for everyone, the biggest battle we're actually fighting is the confidence of people to travel. And I think the measures that we took at the airport, the measures that our colleagues at Emirates took to reassure people that it was safe to travel. And if anyone here has traveled through the airport and airline, I hope you will agree that we took those very strong measures very, very early on. And the second thing is not to be obsessed with the here and now, but to remember that Dubai is in a unique position, both geographically, economically, and in terms of its impact on the world. And there are plenty of people out there that would love to take the opportunity of the pandemic to steal our crown. So we haven't stopped being aware of that competitive position we find ourselves in. And we are still taking measures now to make sure that we're going to the gym, remaining very, very fit, like a coiled spring, ready to rebound as soon as traffic comes back. And I think there is some very strong indications that over the next few weeks, things will move very quickly. We may have seemed as though we've stayed in this rather static position for a long time, but I'm getting the impression now that the progress that we're making with vaccinations here in the UAE, the progress that's being made in the United States, in Israel, in the UK, for example, gives us hope that life will start to resume some sort of normality. And I think it will be a bit like a breaking dam. And as soon as it's safe to travel and regain that social and economic mobility that we've all missed for so long, it will be like a torrent. There won't be a gradual return. There will be a flood, as 4 billion people globally have been on some sort of lockdown over the last 12 months, rediscover their freedom. So we're braced for a very strong return, and we're very grateful, I think, to the strength of leadership and collaboration across the sector that has taken place in order to weather the pandemic probably better than any other nation on earth.
I feel like I need to get in the gym now and become a coiled spring. Very inspiring. Again, to talk about the collaboration, Trixie, give us the perspective from Dubai World Trade Center, because back in the early days of the pandemic, you became a field hospital. I mean, that must have taught you a massive amount about running a venue with corona, with the pandemic. And also talking about long-term planning. When did you actually start the conversation about we're going to get back to live events?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think, having been in Dubai and from Dubai World Trade Center, we've learned over the decades that you need to turn trials into opportunities. You don't waste a good crisis, as what Paul was saying. And I think when we went into a lockdown in March and we had to be at home and work from home, we started to build the comeback plan. We already started in March, the restart plan. So when we ran the field hospitals for 3 months, we initiated very extensive proposals to the Supreme Committee for Crisis Management. with all the new protocols and the guidelines that we need to run events in the new realities. And it was tough because as I understood from Hilal, in the leadership as well, the Supreme Committee has doctors, medical professionals, experts presiding in those committees. Though the conversation is very different from just opening the events. That's not their priority. The priority is to protect and to be extremely prudent. So we went through very extensive scenario planning. And again, understanding that there was no global benchmarking. There was no references anywhere in the world. Everyone was shuttering. We were the only one thinking of reopening already during a shutdown. So when we were allowed to, when the lockdown eased in May, and we thought this is the time for us to go to the Supreme Committee again with our plan. And after some serious, very profound scrutiny by the committee, they approved our plan to pilot the exhibition. And so in July, we organized, as what Hilal was saying, the AI Everything Summer Conference. And we rallied the support of ministers and proponents, eminent business leaders who will give us that level of support. And Paul was there. He was one of our first protagonist guests to show the world that we can run business. So we had that for 1,500 people. That was our first test trial. But we know our target is bigger. We want to look at mega openings of 50,000 capacity and up. And to get there, we need to run another mid-sized event. So we went to the market and we launched our first international commercial event. We had 10,000 visitors coming to our affordable art show from 28 countries. And from that point, we had 94% rating in terms of attendees feeling safe and very safe at the event. Very consistent with our AI Everything at 94%. And then we said, we are intent on opening events only if we are consistently well over 90% in our health and safety standards. And we have achieved that. So here comes, we're going to upsize Gitex in December. And that, of course, is a totally different beast on its own. All the colossal challenges, as you can imagine. But we had visitors coming from 113 countries, people flying in because some of the biggest brands in there. So it proves the point that we managed to do this in a very systematic way, a very progressive and very circumspect approach over a 10-month journey from zero activity during lockdown to 50,000 capacity in 10 months.
Mark, Trixie there talking to us about her journey at Dubai World Trade Center. The hospitality sector in 2020 has gone on a massive journey. I mean, you guys have have to almost become air traffic controllers, making sure that your passengers don't bump into each other and maintain social distancing. Talk us through, how have you managed that logistical challenge?
It's quite interesting to think of the journey that we've been through from the start, where things change so differently, not on a weekly basis, but pretty much on a daily basis, with the shutdown of the airport, moving into lockdown, and then coming out of that period. Accor, like all the other brands, were very fast in putting exceptional protocols together in order to ensure safety of guests and safety of our employees, which of course absolutely paramount amongst everything else. If you look at how that has progressed and the expectation of people, and to the point made earlier with regards to confidence of travel, it's an absolute must that those protocols are in place and that they're 100% observed at all times. But also you want to still try and have a positive guest experience at a hotel level. And I think that is something that Dubai has been able to offer extremely positive. Accor, as you know, is a global brand, over 5,000 hotels operating across the globe. It's been very interesting to see my colleagues comment on Dubai, looking at us from the outside. In 2019, I was over 120 flights, and obviously 2020, hardly any. So I've been sat here listening to the comments, and very proud to hear those comments, I have to say. Public and private sector interaction during this period has been unbelievable, nothing short of. Interaction, open dialogue, real super transparency from Hilal and the guys at the tourism. It's been super. Dubai is, as everybody knows, one of those top destinations in the world, and went into the pandemic, rightly so, in that position. What's wonderful to see is that we've come through the pandemic in the same position, and we will come out of this in the same position with the efforts. Wonderful leadership that's in place from the government here, decisive, but open and transparent, seeking collaboration. This is what makes Dubai a special place.
It's kind of like an F1 driver leading the race, going into the pits and then coming out of the pits and still being in the lead. Matt, you've been very patient there at the end. You're at the sharp end organizing events. Tell us, how on earth did you keep your events alive in 2020? What did you learn from that? And then give us your take on 2021, because you've got live events firmly in your sights again, haven't you?
Yeah, I think we've been remarkably patient. We've waited almost a year to do a show now. At DMG events around the world, we have about 80 shows a year. So last March, we were sat there with all those planned in various different timescales. So we had ones that were due to open any time, and some that were due to open in the autumn. And I think the way we approached those was all differently. First of all, I think, and this is sort of, or most of the organizers around the world felt the same, we kind of worried about that void because we had to push our shows in March, April time and May. And to fill that void, we started reaching out to our exhibitors, who normally we offer them the service of an event, and we satisfy that demand for them, but we needed to find out what they really wanted in that void. And we filled that with a lot of webinars, a lot of digital content, a lot of CPD. So some of the add-ons we normally have at a trade show, we offered them to them there. Then when we started moving through, of course, the point was no one knew how long this was going to last. So we were working on this annual calendar with shows a year away, 9 months away. And as we started to realize as we got further and further, we had some major shows that were coming up that we just didn't know if we could hold or not. And history will show we didn't in the last year. For those ones, we then reached out to virtual. It's a dirty word in my mind. We try not to talk about virtual events, but we did digital festivals. So we tried to give the participants and the exhibitors an element of the show digitally. And it was quite successful at first, as were all the various webinars and things. But I think what's important and what brings us to where we are today is there's been an increasing apathy for that. There's fatigue. We all got bombarded with thousands of webinars and invites to speak at things or listen to things. And I think as that's passed on now, we've had this overwhelming sort of cry for live events again. Watching what Trixie and the DWTC have done has been fantastic for us. And even in different industries or in different subjects, people seeing those live shows happening are realizing what they're missing more and more. And that demand's now brought us to the door of our shows in May, June. And then, of course, as we move into September. And of course, Dubai, with all the activities that the panel have spoken about here, is that first place for us as an international organizer to bring those shows back. So we're looking forward to actually doing what we're supposed to be doing and haven't done for a while.
Well, I'm sure our online audience aren't suffering from Zoom fatigue just yet, but if you are watching from abroad, look where you could be. So I'm sure Dubai is ready to welcome you anytime. Halal, on the most recent cover of Arabian Business, we featured an investor who had moved his entire global operation to Dubai because he said Dubai is open for business. And ITP, we were down at Gulfood, and that was very much on display. How important is it for the world to recognize that message, that not only the doors open to the exhibitions, but business is happening?
Look, I think this is a very interesting point, and we've seen a number of trends emerging through this pandemic. Sitting, as said by my colleagues a year ago when we locked down, we were making plans for things to stop. What we realized quite quickly in Dubai is Dubai is a major trade hub. And, even if you look today at the distribution of the vaccine, much of it is happening through Dubai with Emirates Airline and DP World. We realized Dubai needs to continue to conduct business. Dubai needs to continue to facilitate the business flows from east to west, north to south. We've seen three trends emerging over this year in terms of businesses choosing Dubai. The first, as you mentioned, many remote workers have chosen Dubai as their home. And these remote workers fall into two categories. One category is people working for their company back in X country or Y country, but they're doing it from here because they've had the announcement that they're going to be remote for a while. The second remote worker has come here with his multinational who has shifted employees to Dubai because they see the importance of their well-being and the standard of living here. The second trend we've seen, and we've seen that with regional companies and MNCs, we've seen Dubai is becoming more and more a hub for the world, a hub for emerging markets. A company that used to look at the Middle East alone, maybe today looks at Africa, looks at parts of Asia, CIS, and the geography to which Dubai is serving is expanding on a rapid basis. The third thing that, those of you sitting here with us today know, Dubai is a family place. So many people and many family businesses, owners of family businesses, conglomerates, family offices have chosen Dubai as a home during this pandemic for their family because they wanted their family to be in a place where they could live. And I think that's something which is, maybe turn the needle slightly, because what we're seeing is that these people are here to stay. And we have a number of schemes which are available to companies, entrepreneurs, individuals, whether it's the Golden Visa program, which gives investors or CEOs 10-year visas into Dubai, or the entrepreneurship program, which gives leading entrepreneurs 5 years visas. We have also a remote working program, retirement program. So all these different programs that people that have been around now, most of them before the pandemic, some started through, have gained a lot of traction. The key thing here is when you go back to the events and you see people are not here only to do business here, they're here to do business with the wider world. And if you take Gulfood as an example, and again, as I said earlier, Gulfood is just one of many events, but it's a big one that we can point to. Over 40% of the international visitors who came to Gulfood had to do quarantine when they went back to their home country. So they came here knowing that they were going back to quarantine. I think that's a testament, and that says a lot. Of those people, more than half stayed on in Dubai, and they extended their trip. And when asked, what did you extend for? 85% of them extended for business. So being here for a week for Gulfood wasn't enough. They moved it to 2 weeks, and they conducted a lot more business. And I think this tells us really not just about the events industry. It gives us an indication into the, into how the different economies are being affected by this pandemic, and how Dubai has been playing a role to really ensure that people remain connected, and to really ensure people are able to continue to conduct, the businesses that they have to do for their livelihoods.
Trixie, I'm interested. On day one, when the doors opened at Gulfood or at Gitex, how did that feel to have the doors open? And also, what was the reaction from visitors and exhibitors? How much did it mean for them to be back live?
Well, I moved from first day to the last day. I booked my flight on the Emirates to Maldives. That's on the last day of the show.
Good flight.
Yeah. I think Hilal has already articulated a lot of the vital stats that came out from the show. I think, for Gitex and Gulfood, Gitex was extremely demanding. In a way, I would say it's excruciating. You're dealing with a tech sector that's highly demanding. I think, when you look at these two shows, they're mega events. Each of them are attracting more than 50,000 visitors. Gulfood, 162 countries. People chose to fly in despite home quarantine requirements. And what is the story that you need to give to them to convince them to make those trips when these companies are going through massive budget cuts? We had to deal with a lot of corporate clients, the Microsofts of the world, that have imposed a global physical events ban. You're looking at motivation from my staff. It's hard. And we keep saying this. I have a bunch of amazing men and women in our office who kept through. You can win a contract one day and you lose 20 contracts overnight. And at the same time, we need to keep them very healthy to make sure that, we are COVID-free, because we have an event to run. When one is down, the herd is down. So there's a lot of different considerations intensively that played out during the few months leading to the show. But we were confident because we know clients want to do business, but they want you to help them build the confidence and convince the businesses. So at the end, what came out from it as Hilal cited, 92% of our attendees rated Dubai as the top destination in the world for the balance of safety standards, access to business opportunity, and overall business traveler experience. And what we have done well as an Emirate, with all our stakeholders here, is that we managed to create a safe and seamless experience, one that is not cumbersome, that doesn't overly inconvenience them, and make it awkward for them. And I think this, and yet very safe. We scored high. So from, again, let me reiterate, when we started AI everything, we scored 94% in terms of our safety rating from the attendees. We went on to World Art Dubai, 94%. Gitex, 96%. We continue to work hard, like what Mohammed was saying. Gulfood, we came in at 98% of the attendees rating it as superb in terms of the health and safety measures. So if you look at that, along the way, nobody was overly inconvenienced or obstructed in their business experience. And I think this is why we're all sitting here articulating to the world how Dubai has done it in a fashion that promotes business safely, and yet, it's an amazing opportunity for you to go beyond Dubai to the region here as well.
Still jealous of that Maldives flight. Mark, give me a sense of how much it means to the hospitality industry to have live events back, having MICE back on stream.
I mean, it means so much. Of course, our business relies heavily on corporate business, business taking place in Dubai, big events taking place, and to my colleague's point, Zoom and Teams are wonderful, but they're never going to replace face-to-face. And I don't know about other people sitting here today. When I arrived, what a nice feeling it is to come to an event, see so many people interacting. I arrived just at the door. I couldn't get through the door. People were exchanging business cards. It's wonderful to see, and we need that to continue to grow and develop and take place, and I'm sure it will. And if you look at the two events that have taken place and the statistics that Trixie's quoting, again, it's expected in Dubai that you lead the way, I have to say. And what's nice is that we are leading the way. We've held some big events. The size of those events will increase going forward. It's super important. A wonderful hotel inventory here in Dubai, and not just amongst the core, but all the brands, better than anywhere in the world from a city location perspective, with so much to offer. And it's fabulous that we're open for business, and also that there's a growing demand to take up on that offer and come back to Dubai.
I can see in the audience that we've got JJ from Hilton here. He's hard to miss, these flamboyant socks and his bright tie. Can we get a microphone? Because JJ, I'd like to get the Hilton view on this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is JJ Sly, for the Middle East and Africa resident for Hilton. JJ, what are you seeing in terms of pent-up demand for events? How big a part of your strategy is this?
Yeah, definitely. We see a lot of demand from Europe mainly towards latter part 2021 into 22. Groups, Israel actually is looking to put business here as well. We talk to clients every day, and the number one destination, because of safety and because we have shown the world in Dubai that we can do it, is Dubai. So we hear every day from clients that want to come here again. We have created a product called Hilton Event Ready hybrid events. So I know we just heard, we don't want to do Zoom, but I think, we'll have some combis, but the demand is there, definitely. So we're looking forward to welcoming everybody back in Dubai.
Great. Thanks, JJ. Very jealous of those socks. Halal, one of the most vaccinated countries in the world, the top 3. That's got to be a really powerful message as a destination. How big a part has that already played in Q1 in restoring confidence? What are you seeing?
Look, I think we're very lucky here. The authorities have obviously taken, as we said, the right measures, whether it's the test and trace program that took place from the beginning, or the vaccination program with over 50% of the population now vaccinated. I think this is a major driver because it brings confidence to the industry. We looked at the hospitality industry, and we've begun a program with all the hotels to vaccinate every staff member. We've already completed certain geographies like the Palm, and we continue to go across Dubai. I think this is something that brings strength. to Dubai. What I would say, though, is, reflecting on it all, I would say the most important thing, and I think the thing that has brought confidence to people here and internationally, is the consistency in which the decision-making of the government has taken place and the data on which that is based. There's been no point in time where the government has hesitated or chopped and changed its mind or confused anyone. It's been one path from the beginning. And when you have a path like that and you need to adjust for whatever reason, some people think this happens. It doesn't just happen. We've had over 170,000 inspections. We've closed down numerous places. We've closed down entire hotels. We've closed down, shops, everything else for non-compliance. The ability to sort of guide through and have everyone's support with that and adjust where needed is the way the momentum continues. Consistency and accountability have definitely been, the theme through this last year. And I know there are many different approaches that people have taken around the world, and all of those, have worked maybe in their own countries. But for us, I think that consistency and the trust and the transparency that's been developed between the people and the government, the private and public sector, I think that's what is going to allow us to accelerate through this year, being the year of our Golden Jubilee.
Paul, I can see you nodding your head vigorously as Halal's talking there. How important has that vaccination program been to you as CEO of a massive operation operationally?
Well, I think if you can choose a single KPI across the world to see how quickly we're going to get out of this particular global pandemic, it's the global vaccination rate. And although that's hovering around 4%, which clearly is rather low at this point in time, the fact that Israel, the UAE, the UK, and now the US have exit strategies based on vaccination, I think is a very encouraging sign. And I think also the fact that we are working as an industry to basically reassure governments that once we've got the data on how vaccinations actually limit the transmission capability of the virus, that will work hand in glove with the various quarantine and control programs that each country is practicing to protect their domestic populations. It's incredibly important that that agenda coalesces, because we have to get mobility back. And I think a lot of people are hoping that the world's going to move in step on this, but unfortunately, as we can see from the huge variance in the vaccination rates across the world, that's not going to happen. We're going to have to rely on bilateral relationships between countries that have reached a similar stage of protection of their communities against the pandemic. And I think we're very close with a lot of countries now. There's a lot of meetings going on at the moment, and I think we'll see some announcements which will mean the mobility of the world starts to get back to normal in fairly short order. I think one of the things, that Hilal has mentioned, it's the consistency of leadership messages, which has been very, very noticeable here in the UAE. We're very blessed with the weather, of course, that we've been able to hold a lot of events outdoors. We've been able to eat outdoors when others, particularly in Europe, are freezing in February. So I'm particularly smug about that particular point when I talk to my fellow countrymen back in the UK. But I think the thing is, most of all, Dubai reminds us every single day that life is for living. It's not just for working. And I don't think there's a single city that does this better than here in the UAE and here in Dubai. So I think that's the reason a lot of people are coming here and are very envious of the progress we've made in being able to not only overcome the difficulties of the global pandemic, but have a consistent strategy, which means that we'll be very early leaders on the way out of this. So watch this space. We are the preeminent airport in the world. We've retained that #1 position as the largest international hub in the world, even through the bad times when we're only existing on 20% of our normal throughput, about 2 million passengers instead of the 8 million we normally welcome every month. But I think the thing is, the confidence is there, and we will lead the recovery very firmly from the front.
I have to say, guilty as charged on being smug online as well about that. Mohammed, as well, Emirates Airlines, one of the first airlines in the world to have all its frontline staff vaccinated. How is that playing out in terms of passenger confidence?
I think the Dubai vaccination program and the UAE vaccination program as a whole is invaluable testament to how the strong leadership is making sure that we keep our city and country safe. And as Emirates, like you rightfully said, we've taken that step for all our employees in order to get them vaccinated. And as most of the frontline staff are vaccinated today, we are seeing that play a vital role in the safety processes that we are putting in place in order to get the consumer confidence back, I would say.
So I was listening to the BBC this morning and they were talking about the EU are planning a green certificate, a vaccine passport. And also we had British Airways just this week also calling for that. Matt, would that help? Would that help drive business travelers?
Absolutely. I think the Trixie, Paul, Halal have all mentioned confidence, and it's coming out for all the speeches today. What we've got to do, we know the audience want to come to the shows. There's a demand there, we've seen it, and they want that physical interaction, especially on the international shows. So we need to provide that confidence and share it with them, and be that as a hub, so we can bring that international audience, be it a safety aspects, which Trixie's obviously championed there and so on. We work with UFI to make sure it's available. So people are confident in that. So once we have that, a vaccine certificate, yes, absolutely, may well add to that general level of confidence and just bring the travellers again. That's what we're looking forward to in the next few months.
Mark, would you add your voice to that? What's your thought on the vaccine passport?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that, isn't it? Is it coming? What's it going to be? How does it look? How is it going to work? Let's not forget a vaccination documentation you've needed to travel in Africa for the last 15 years. Without it, there's many borders that you can't cross. It's a very simplistic thing. Will this come? I would imagine, yes, it will come. And again, I think this is a confidence issue, but also in order to stimulate that, people need to get back to some kind of an ease of travel. And such a process would definitely aid that, I'm sure.
So recently, Arabian Business held a forum and we asked a simple question, which was, can the UAE become the first post-coronavirus economy? PwC, Stephen Anderson, said on stage, it already is. Halal, final response before I take some questions from Zoom, but what's your 60-second take on that? And what's really exciting you about 2021?
So I agree with her. Definitely the economy restarted here, back last summer. We are still living in a COVID world today. The Dubai economy links to the rest of the world. The consistency that I mentioned earlier has brought confidence, and business is happening through here with all of the continents, whether it's business in Africa. If you look at Dubai Chamber today, 17,000 African companies have set up shop here. They're covering Africa, right? Just to give one example. What I would say is that as each country opens up, and as each country normalizes, they get through their vaccination program, they get over this, you will see the economy expanding and expanding. And as Paul said, it's an incremental process. It's happening on a bilateral level. And I believe that through the course of this year, the world will get through this. You can see the markets are already looking through this, whether it's valuations and other things. And people now see, in every country, see the light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccinations and with the shared learning across the world and everybody kind of working together on these things. So I'm very confident, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this year.
Thanks. I'm now going to try and put technology to the test and see if we can take a couple of questions from the audience tuning in on Zoom. And I believe the first question is here in the UAE from Dan Futrell. Dan from ITP, are you there?
Hi, Scott.
It is. Can we hear you, Dan?
Can you hear me okay?
Excellent, excellent. Dan, you have a question for our panel. Shoot.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. And thanks to all the speakers. Really enjoyed the discussion today. I just wanted to get the thoughts of the panel on how long do you think it might take to return to the heights of 2019 for visitor numbers at large scale events?
It's a big question. I think that's got to go to Halal.
Look, I think we need to look at these two things separately. When you're looking at visitor numbers for large-scale events, I believe that this is going to happen over a 12-month period. The reason I say 12 months is because the large-scale events in Dubai are definitely the leading events in the particular sector. So if we give the example of Gulfood is the leading annual food event in the world, which means that as international visitors, even if they are choosing only one event to go to versus 5, we're lucky enough for it to be our event. The other thing is that the size of these events, even if it's 50, 100,000 people, even at a smaller capacity in terms of airline network setup, as the rest of the world opens, we still have enough capacity for that, because that's a fraction of the needed capacity or Dubai's capacity, as Dubai from a scale perspective is so much bigger, whether it's the hotels or it's the airlines or anything else. When it comes to travel in general, it's going to take a little longer to get back to the numbers, because you will see that the first thing that needs to be reestablished is the full airline network. It's not just the network to Dubai, because all the parts of the airline network link together. And that would take a little while.
Thanks, Dan, for your question. Now I'm going to try and reach into the kingdom. And Paul Grinnell in Saudi Arabia, are you there?
Good afternoon.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, and hello to all the panelists. Salam alaikum, kifalak. Thanks to the audience near and far. And I appreciate you being invited to ask my question. To put this into context, a lot of the territories around the world and countries are stalled in their reopening of shows. And do you think the resurgence of events in Dubai is due to the joined up thinking or collaborative nature from authorities and companies?
I have just the two people to answer that question. I'm going to go to Paul first.
Most definitely. I think the difficulty has been really, it's almost been a social one in some countries. Here, the government were very, very clear very early on about what we all needed to do to control the spread of the virus and to keep the pandemic under control. I think that's why the infection rates here have been largely far better than they've been in other parts of the world. And I think that discipline has been at the heart of it. I mean, sad to say that over the holiday period in December and January, when we had a huge number of visitors from overseas, one of the things I noticed straight away was a slight lack of discipline amongst those visitors compared to the discipline that we had here. And I think that level of collaboration that we've had across the sector, I spend a huge amount of my time talking to colleagues in DTCM, in other government departments, in the airline customers we have, the control authorities, just making sure that we're moving in step to meet every single challenge. The National Crisis and Emergency Committee that has steered the approach on health has been incredibly consistent in driving that forward. And I really do think that that's been at the heart of it. And in other parts of the world, unfortunately, I don't think that discipline has been as good. And unfortunately, that's translated directly into some of the increases in infection and the huge second wave that we've seen. Fortunately, I think everyone is now very aware of the fact that we have to stop this thing in its tracks and have changed its tune. But I definitely think that the progress that we've made here has been largely due to very strong leadership and very good discipline and compliance.
Mohammed, you'd have been one of Paul's collaborative partners in this process. Your thoughts on that?
I echo what Paul has said. I mean, the overall strong and visionary leadership is what has led us to where we are today in managing this pandemic fairly successfully. Just to add, it is the collaboration between the private and public sector, which has helped us and will help us to emerge out of this even stronger. I mean, it's quite evident in the data and the two big events that had taken place. And we are also looking forward to the next big event, which is in May with the ATM, and a whole long list of events to come from now until the 1st of October when we see the Expo 2020 go live.
Time is against us, but one last question from Zoom, and I believe we're joined by Aman Sathi here in the UAE. Hi, Aman, what's your question?
Thank you so much, panelists. Very well executed panel so far. Very curious, Trixie mentioned about this earlier on in the panel as well, with global companies placing global restrictions on physical events. I would be curious to know, how do we change that as an events industry as a whole?
Trixie, I'll allow you to answer that one quickly, and I'll also ask Matt's thoughts before we close.
I think, when you have a pandemic crisis as such, it is not so easy to convert a client unless you have a lot of trust and goodwill built up with them, a lot of these MNCs over the years. And this is the time when you call up this capital. And I've said it to my colleagues as well, understanding that there's a lot of trust in the leadership here, a lot of trust in brand Dubai, trust in Trade Center, trust in the brands of Gitex, Gulfood, and all the other shows that's upcoming. So to your point, yes, we were besieged by no travel policy, budget cuts, global lockdown, quarantine rules. You can't really go back to the clients with the same story and the same rhetoric anymore. Your product proposition has to be much more creative than before, because the return on investment is going to be much lower. There's going to be less people coming, less regional buyers coming into your show. So firstly, start with making sure that you have an amazing, resilient bunch of people in the office who's going to really believe in that brand and carry it through. And I think going back to your clients and not taking a no for an answer. We have managed to convert a lot of the tech companies, and tech is probably one of those sectors where you have most of the MNCs saying no physical events. We managed to win quite a lot of them. We lost some, but we also, found new friends. And it's very important to get back there, give them another story, work with them on creative packaging, not price packaging, because people don't buy into it. They have the money, they're just not spending it. So give them a reason to spend with you. And I think this is where you will build your brand and build confidence over time.
I can confirm that Trixie is almost impossible to say no to. Matt, final thoughts on this?
We haven't had too much of that, to be honest, because a lot of our events are SME based, so don't have those decisions. But I think the answer is going to be they're going to come back when they realize how much they're missing out. Just putting these shows on and getting them out into market, they'll feel the pain of not being there. And I think they'll be round on the next cycle.
Okay. I'm just going to look to our production people, see, do we have time for a couple of Q&As from the audience? Anybody would like to ask a question, put your hand up. No hands. Speechless from all the amazing insight. So at the end of this, it only really falls to me to say thank you so much. Hello, one last. I
just want to really take the opportunity to thank the people watching us from abroad, the people here, and to say we do really thank all of the corporates who have participated in our events over the last 10 months for putting their trust in us and being really open with us and allowing us to work hand in hand with them to work through this pandemic. So I really want to say, from myself, from Dubai government, we do appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you from the panel, and thank you to the panel as well. Trixie, Paul, Halal, Mohammed, Mark, Matt, thank you all for your thoughts. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you all for joining us live here today in this amazing venue. And again, to those thousands joining us around the world, thank you so much for tuning in to the Dubai Global Reopening Events Forum. Thank you.